Ex-boyfriend tested my patience by instructing his kids to destroy my mom's urn, all for an engagement prank, and I showed him the door. My boyfriend, now ex, has 3 kids all 10 and under. Their bio mom died giving birth to the youngest. We dated for about a year and a half. I got along well with all 3 of them, and as a unit we were comfortable and dare I say complete. They were spending a lot of time over at my house and I genuinely enjoyed it. Then just recently during a holiday when all the kids had the day off from school/preschool, my BF came and the kids came over for a day of fun. They'd been there for about an hour when my BF said he needed to go to the store to get some things for dinner, his treat. I told him we could just order a pizza and we should enjoy the time together, especially since I'd promised the kids a whole day of gaming and I was looking forward to keeping my word because my own parents and I played video games together when I was a kid. My BF insisted that he would be in and out and not to worry. Not even 5 minutes after he left, the kids started acting up and completely out of control. I mean screeching, throwing things, opening the fridge and pulling all of the food out, taking a pen and running up and down the hallway while writing with it on my walls, etc. Nothing I said or did made any impact. They wouldn't go to timeout, they didn't care about not playing games, they wouldn't listen. It was a complete 180 from the kids I'd grown to know and love. I was calling my BF over and over, and most of time he sent me to VM. When he did pick up he would tell me that's nothing, they're fine, you're the adult, and when he was finally annoyed with me he told me to handle it how I see fit and that he would be right back. He hung up abruptly and when I went to call him back I heard something shatter. I whirled around to see my mom's urn shattered and on the floor. It had been on my fireplace mantle next to her picture and one of the kids had gotten on reading chair to knock it down. I absolutely lost it. I started shrieking at the top of my lungs for them to get the fuck out of my house. They seemed to be in shock and wouldn't move so I grabbed the 2 oldest by their jackets and threw them out of my front door. They were crying when I went to retrieve the youngest and as I was marching back to my front door to put the youngest out front as well, my boyfriend appeared. He demanded to know why the kids were crying and I told him because your kids are godless demons that are going to wind up in jail or dead when they grow up. I then shoved his youngest at him and turned around to go back to my house. He followed behind me scolding me for abandoning the kids and instead of telling him to A off I told him to come see what they done. He looked at everything with a dry expression. I mean nothing to show outrage at how the kids behaved. I started to think he was being purposely aloof when he said you failed. I thought I'd misheard him, so I asked him what? He said that he told the kids to put me through the ringer because he wanted to purpose to me and he needed to be sure I could handle the stress of being a mom. He said that if I was really his true love and if I truly loved the kids, I'd be able to handle all of this without calling him over and over or ditching the kids outside. I started rage crying and asked him if he understood that they destroyed my mom's urn because of him and he replied she's gone, Bunny. We're here. You were gonna have to toss that creepy thing out anyway, once we moved in. I slapped him. Not once, but twice. I didn't care if the kids saw, or if he called the police, because who the fuck actually does this to someone? He told me he would forgive me when I called and apologized to him and the kids. I told him to go to hell, and he said I'd see things clearly when I calmed down. I blocked him on everything, and then took pictures of the destruction and posted about it on every SM account I have. Apparently, he has my email because he emailed me and told me I was overreacting to everything, and that everything could be cleaned or replaced, including my mom's ashes, as they were most likely dust and cigarette ash and not her actual ashes. I have zero desire to get back together with him, because as far as I'm concerned he's a sociopath. 98% of my friends and family are totally on my side, but the other 2% said that he was right about me and that no matter what, I'm the adult and I willingly put kids in danger. Update 1. Please be patient with me, as there are certain parts I have to be as vague as possible with due to current/active legal reasons, but where I can give specific details, I absolutely will so I can to try and make sure you're getting as clear of an update as possible. When my ex and his kids left, first thing I did was cry. Then swept up my mom's ashes and broken urn into a plastic container and vacuumed up the leftover remnants which caused me to throw up afterward but I couldn't stand the thought of my mom not being whole. I put it all, vacuum, included, beside my bed until I could calm down enough to think straight. When I did calm, I mourned anew. I couldn't bear to be away from my mom even for a second so I stayed in my room with her. I work from home and had to take time off since I couldn't stand to leave my bed because I was beating myself up so badly for allowing this to happen. Yes, I absolutely blame myself. We, my mom and I, stayed together like that for a couple days. I realized I was not okay mentally. I was heading towards in a depression. I called my therapist and scheduled an emergency phone session because I refused to leave my room let alone my house for anything. After a lengthy conversation with my therapist, I learned that my reaction to the kids trashing my house and breaking my mom's urn is called reactive abuse. That's where the abuser, either directly or indirectly, pushes your buttons as hard as possible, doing everything in their power to elicit an explosion emotional response from you and then they use it against you. As many of you saw, Jay, my ex, did exactly that when he was cyber stalking me in my Reddit post. I made sure cyber attacks were screenshot and saved as proof. The revelation of reactive abuse was so validating. I felt better after my session, however, I wasn't ready to go back out into the world by any means. But I had energy now to clean the food off of my kitchen floor that the kids had dumped there, and while cleaning I started to wonder how I was going to find someone to help me with my mom's remains. I plagued over it until I went back up to bed. Then I remembered I had a phone with internet capability. I started to Google keepsakes made from ashes and found that people/places can get several different things made from a loved one's ashes, but I wanted something strong and resilient, so I could keep it with me knowing it would be safe from harm. I found a place on the other side of the city, and took my mom's ashes to this funeral home that has a contract with a jewelry maker who makes necklaces, rings, etc. out of someone's ashes for you. I had promised my therapist that I would go out just once during the week, so I decided this would be that outing. The container, the vacuum, I took all of it with me bright and early the next day. I walked in the doors with a polite smile on my face, marched right up to a confused-looking gentleman behind the front desk, and when I opened my mouth, I just broke. I couldn't control it, my knees gave out and I hit the floor without feeling it. I didn't even try to break my fall for fear of damaging my mom's remains any further. I just completely, emotionally shattered and started crying my heart out on the floor. The gentleman, who we will call Elliot, ran over to me and, without a single hesitation, wrapped me in the most comforting hug one human could give to another. Someone else approached, I had no idea who, since I was crying so hard I couldn't open my eyes, and Elliot asked the person to please take the items from me and place them directly beside us. I felt delicate hands touch my hand holding the container and gave my wrist a reassuring squeeze. I don't have a clue why I trusted this feeling, but I did. The items were taken and placed beside me as promised. He didn't judge me as I screamed and wailed, but instead told me, "It's all right, miss. Get it out, don't hold back. You're not alone. I'm here." I have no idea how long we were on the floor, but when I started to feel the grief ease, Elliot was already armed with Kleenex and the kindest expression, one of patience and absolute understanding. He very gently asked me, "How can I help you today?" I reached down and held up the items, and all I could croak out was my mom before bawling again. Elliot looked concerned and asked what happened. Instead of sobbing and snotting my way through the story, I just pulled up my post on my phone and handed it to Elliot. I watched his expressions go from thoughtful, to shocked to enraged. He schooled his features before meeting my eye, replacing the outraged expression with a professional smile. He asked me if I'd like to look at some ash stones, new urns and/or jewelry pieces and see if I liked anything. I nodded, managing to get out "Jewelry, please," and he guided me to the table and brought out some catalogs of different styles for me to look through. I found one that I loved, a Queen Lizzie style ring with 14K yellow gold and moissanite. It was gorgeous, but it was nearly $1,000, and when I saw the price my face fell. I couldn't afford it since I had to pay for repairs on my house. I looked to see if they offer payment plans, and sadly they did not. Elliot picked up on my distress and asked what was wrong. I honestly didn't realize he was studying my expression, but it made me feel seen, if that makes any sense. I told him this one has everything that I love, but I can't afford it. Elliot asked my ring size, to which I answered 6. Why? Elliot got up and went over to the desk and picked up the phone, calling someone. "Hey, I have a special order. I'll send you all of the info before closing, and I'll front the complete cost." My jaw went slack and I immediately began to protest, "Cause that's $1,000, but he hung up and strode back over without issue. I tried telling him he didn't need to do that, and that I couldn't let him possibly damage his professional relationship with the jewelry company because of someone he didn't even know. Elliot assured me it was no issue because the jewelry maker was someone very close to him and it was the least he could do after all I'd endured. I told him I'd make payments to him in return. He tried to argue, but I insisted and stated I wouldn't be okay taking advantage of his kindness. He told me the only thing he required was knowing he'd helped a customer. This man didn't know me from Adam, and he just gifted me the most precious thing I could ever ask for. I didn't know what to say except to thank him over and over again. He got forms and I filled them out, and when it came time to hand over my mom's ashes, Elliot let me take my time, again being the kindest person I think I've ever encountered before. He took my mom, in both the vacuum and Tupperware container, and told me sweetly that the next time I see my mom she's gonna be shining with happiness to be reunited with me. He believes our loved ones stay with us and give us little winks to let us know they're there. He told me that my mom was in excellent hands and he would treat her with absolute love and respect. He also told me he'd take what was in the vacuum and put it with the other ashes, asking if I'd be okay waiting. All I could see in that moment was a cloud of ashes in the air, and the aftermath of my mom's urn shattered on the floor back at my house, and I told him I couldn't handle the thought of her ashes being loose again. The door chimed as someone else came in, and since I didn't want to cause a scene by breaking down again, I told Elliot to hold on to my vacuum and I'll be back for it the next day. I left immediately after that. The next day came and I didn't go back. I was so embarrassed over my meltdown that I couldn't bear to go show my face right away. I did call, though, and let Elliot know that I was going to come back and pick up the vacuum as soon as I could and apologize profusely for my behavior. Elliot was more than understanding and asked if it would be alright if he called and checked in on me. I wouldn't be cut out for this job if I didn't care about my clients. The thought of this kind gentleman calling me and checking in on me made me feel many kinds of ways, but more than anything it made me happy to have someone go out of their way to show they care, so I agreed. Over the next 3 weeks I was busy getting damage assessments, repair quotes and estimates, and finding a lawyer to sue my bastard of an ex into the ground. The cost is in the thousands, including the food they pulled out and all over my kitchen floor that I had to throw away and replace, walls that needed repainting and holes that needed patching. During those weeks, though, Elliot would call every couple of days and check on me. Not in an overbearing way, but in a very genuine manner. When he would call, I would tell him I hadn't forgotten the vacuum and that I'd be by to get it. Elliot would say it's okay but would jokingly tell me that he would be using it to clean as a form of payment for keeping it, and that always made me laugh. It actually became an inside joke for us, with me saying enjoy it while it lasts, it's an auric, and him saying he'd provide services when the vacuum finally died. I noticed our conversations were getting longer and longer, and honestly it was nice. It was nice having a new friend to talk with about everything. He always listened patiently and offered very grounded advice. Then one day, maybe about 4-ish weeks post-breakup, I got a call from the funeral home but I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because my ex's son, who we'll call Jacob, showed up alone at my house out of the clear blue sky. I opened the door, saw Jacob and was immediately looking for James, my ex. Jacob started talking in a rush. My dad's not here, Bonnie, just me. I promise he doesn't know I'm here. We didn't know you would hate us, Dad told us too. Bonnie, you have to believe me. I'm so sorry, please don't hate us, we're all so sorry. I was in shock for a solid 60 seconds, before ushering him into my house and sitting him down. He told me that he'd taken the bus all by himself, he's only 10 and had googled what bus to take, and that his dad had been busy lately figuring out how to dirty my name as payback for my social media posts and for dumping him. This part I have to omit details for because of the current court case going on, but Jacob told me that his dad had been taking things of mine for later use. Again, omitting how Jacob came upon the information, but his dad had pics of my checkbook, my credit cards, written down my personal and professional emails, and had taken things like a razor from my shower, a package of my makeup wipes and a box of tampons from my bathroom cabinet. I remember asking my ex about those items when I had discovered them missing, but my ex always said he didn't know what I was talking about or where they went. I chalked it up to my ad and being busy, so I didn't worry about it and simply got the items again when I went back to the store. But now I know it was my ex's attempt to mess with my head, just like him calling me Bunny when I hate that nickname. For the record, my name is Bonnie. My ex had also apparently never gone to the store but instead went to the gas station up the street and came right back. The part that made me stop everything and immediately call the police was when I noticed some not normal marks on Jacob. I can't say much, but I'll say that my ex kept disciplining all 3 kids daily since the breakup because they overplayed their part, and that was why I dumped him and left the family. I assured him that was not the case and hugged him tightly, promising him that I didn't hate him. I hated his dad for what he tricked them into doing. Now, I can't say much about the events that took place after I called police, since cases are still actively open, but I will say the kids were removed and placed with a relative, and I was granted my restraining order. X was charged with several things, including malicious mischief, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and second-degree abuse of a corpse. As in my state, the term human corpse covers 1. Any part of a human body. 2. Cremated human remains, often referred to as ashes. 3. Any part of the ashes from a cremated human body. When the 8 weeks needed to make my mom ring were up, I was preparing to drive over when I got a knock on my door. I'd finished a particularly long and cathartic teletherapy appointment and ordered Thai food, so I thought it was my tom yum soup at my door. I opened it to see Elliot smiling softly at me. I don't know why it took me so long to realize how handsome Elliot is, but he is. Imagine Zayn from One Direction but without tattoos, and with longer hair and a well-trimmed beard. He was striking in his black suit and dark green tie. I admit I was gobsmacked for a few seconds, also drooling on the inside, but when I found my voice I managed to say oh so poetically GH. Elliot just smiled more and said, I hope you won't think me too forward, but I wanted to deliver this in person. My mind was a whirlwind trying to process everything. How did he know where I live? Oh duh, the forms. Why is he here? Oh duh, he just said he wanted to deliver it in person. My brain was a delightful tornado of thoughts until he lifted a ring box. He presented the ring to me and it was even more beautiful than the catalog picture. And sure enough, it was super shiny. I sucked in a breath and teared up immediately, saying my mommy's ring. Elliot held out his other hand and asked, may I? I nodded and he slipped the ring on my middle finger. He admired it, asked me if I was satisfied with the services provided. Of course I was, thanked me for trusting him with my mom, then told me he'd head out to give me time to process and heal anew. He then gave me a wink before letting my hand go. Before I could say anything resembling coherent language, he held up my vacuum for me to take and then bid me a good afternoon, ever the gentleman, and telling me he'd call me in the morning to see how mom and I were doing. In case you were wondering, we are not dating, I am nowhere near ready for that, but we have been spending time together over the past year and have gotten close. When I started legal action against my ex, I had no idea it could be dragged out for so long. The most experience I have with anything court-related is when I got a parking ticket about 2 or 3 years ago, and went to traffic court. It was a one and done, same-day thing, so I thought this would be relatively straightforward and quick. I now know that there are a ton of things that can delay court proceedings, continuances, motions, scheduling, etc. There are a few court dates coming up, one regarding the mistreatment of the kids, omitting specifics, so I'm anxious about that. Especially since I have to see my ex in court as I'm testifying against him, but my dad is going to be escorting me to the upcoming hearings. I had avoided my dad because I felt responsible for my mom's ashes being destroyed and I didn't know how to face him. I've since told him everything and my dad told me there was nothing that I needed to be sorry about or ashamed of, but that good for nothing, dead duck, blunderbuss had another thing coming. Update 2. So, remember how I said something big was coming? Scratch that. Big doesn't even begin to describe it. After the forest incident and the strange occurrences at my apartment, I thought I was finally catching my breath. Nope. That was just the opening act. 2 nights ago, I was at this old diner near the edge of town, one of those places with flickering neon signs, the smell of grease permanently embedded in the air, and a lone waitress who seems to work every shift. I was trying to calm my nerves with a towering stack of pancakes and bottomless coffee when my phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. The text read, "You're in danger. They know where you are." Honestly, I was too tired for cryptic nonsense, so I texted back, "Who is this, and who are they?" The reply came almost instantly, "Look outside." My stomach dropped. Against every ounce of better judgment, I turned to look out the fogged-up diner window. And there, across the street, was a man in a black trench coat. He wasn't moving, just standing there, illuminated by the faint glow of a flickering street lamp. His face was in shadow, but I could feel his eyes on me. Another buzz, "Get in the car." At that exact moment, a sleek black car skidded to a stop in front of the diner. Before I could process what was happening, the trenchcoat man started walking toward the door. Something about the deliberate way he moved, calm, methodical, made every hair on my body stand on end. I didn't wait to find out who he was. I bolted out the diner's back door and practically dove into the waiting car. Inside was a woman who looked like she'd stepped straight out of an action movie. Black leather jacket, dark sunglasses, yes, at night, and an air of absolute control. She didn't even glance at me. "Drive," she commanded the driver. Then she turned to me, her voice cold but calm. "You're not safe here. They're coming for you." "Who the hell are you?" I demanded. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she handed me a folder. My name was scrawled on the front in red marker. Inside were photos. Of me. Some were recent, me at work, at the grocery store, in my apartment. Others were older, including one of me as a kid playing in my backyard. But here's the kicker, there were photos of places I've never been, with me in them. Like one of me standing in front of a monument I didn't recognize, wearing clothes I'd never owned. "You don't remember, do you?" the woman asked. "Remember what?" "You're part of something much bigger than you can imagine," she said, her tone almost pitying. "And it's time you learned the truth. But first, we need to keep you alive." Before I could ask what the hell she was talking about, the car swerved violently. The driver shouted, "They found us." Through the rear window, I saw 3 black SUVs speeding toward us, their headlights cutting through the darkness like predatory eyes. The woman cursed under her breath and pulled out a sleek, tablet-like device. She tapped a few buttons, and suddenly, the road behind us lit up with metallic spikes that shot up from the asphalt. The first SUV didn't even slow down, it hit the spikes full force, flipping end over end before crashing into the ditch. The second swerved just in time, but the third wasn't so lucky. "Who are you people?" I shouted, clutching the seat as the driver took a sharp turn down a dirt road. The woman finally took off her sunglasses, revealing piercing green eyes that seemed almost too vivid. "We're the ones trying to keep you alive. But you're making it really difficult." "Alive from what?" She hesitated for the first time, as if trying to find the right words. "From them. The people who've been watching you since the day you were born." "Why?" Instead of answering, she pulled out a small metal box from her jacket and handed it to me. "Open it." Inside was a strange key, silver, with an intricate pattern of lines and symbols that seemed to shift when I tilted it. It felt warm in my hand, almost alive. "That," she said, "is why they're after you." "What does it open?" "Not what," she corrected. "Where?" Before I could ask her what the hell she meant, the car came to an abrupt stop. We were in the middle of a dense forest, and the driver was staring at something ahead with wide, terrified eyes. Boss?" he said, his voice shaking. I followed his gaze and saw it, a massive, glowing portal hovering in the middle of the road. Its edges shimmered like liquid silver, and the air around it crackled with energy. "They've activated it," the woman muttered, more to herself than to us. "Activated what?" I yelled. She turned to me, her expression dead serious. "The portal. If they get you through it, it's over. For all of us." Before I could respond, the SUVs roared back into view, headlights cutting through the trees. The woman grabbed my arm and shoved the key back into my hand. "Whatever happens," she said, her voice low and urgent, "don't let them take you. And don't lose that key." The last thing I remember was the blinding light of the portal engulfing the car, a deafening roar, and the sensation of being pulled apart and stitched back together at the same time. When I came to, I wasn't in the forest anymore. I was standing on the edge of a cliff, overlooking a vast, alien landscape. Twin suns burned in a crimson sky, and strange, otherworldly creatures moved in the distance. The woman was gone. The car was gone. All I had was the key, and a growing sense that my life, my world, Was never what I thought it was.